perspective on this thing about Africa and using the word black. I don't talk about black African this, that, or the other. I talk about biohistorically African populations, by which I mean populations that emerged, that were assembled, and that were shaped in Africa. And I don't know how many Egyptians were this color or that color. I just know that, and to what degree and in what time there were inputs from different places, any more than in Greece. Okay, even any more, you pick the place you want to pick. You can find, for example, the R1 lineage that I think has been talked about recently in some of the Amarna mummies as a Y chromosome lineage. You can find that in a whole bunch of Africans who are jet black with full lips and other. The real question is, what does that signify in terms of population history? Is that a marker of a whole group moving, or is that something that dates from the Paleolithic time? It comes back to Africa, gets sloshed around in the Green Sahara, and then gets, later on after desiccation, winds up in different folks in different places. I think everyone here understands that concept. And so, so now we're talking about population history, population biology, and we're not talking about assigning things to races. Okay. Contextualize it for it to mean something. Just finding some DNA, as some people are doing, or have in some mummies in Egypt, doesn't mean that the Egyptian population came from that place, wherever that place is. If you found some L1 Y chromosome, mitochondrial DNA, and some M78 or whatever. Ramses III is bearing E1B1A Y chromosome lineage, which is an old African lineage in the E. That doesn't mean wherever that lineage originated in Africa, doesn't mean that his daddy came from there or his granddaddy came from there. That stuff was all mixed up in the Sahara and the Nile Valley. But I fully acknowledge, and this is what I would say to Vanessa, Stuart, and others. We do know that the Egyptians from the proto-dynastic period had colonies in the Levant. We do, thereby creating a social basis for interaction. We do know that Thutmose and others imported or had foreign wives from Southwest Asia. And in fact, somehow a big deal was made up, probably because those were political marriages. We do know sometimes they have multiple wives. So, if you do a little math, multiple wives, multiple children, if they all survive or most survive, you're an elite. And then they all have lots of daughters and they survive, then you can actually change the genetic profile in a given region. In terms of that lineage. But doesn't mean you change who created the culture and who the people stand. Why? Because when you come to the Nile Valley, you will find a population that's got variation in its DNA. And the question becomes, is this a signal of where Egyptian culture in some formed sense, or a population bearing that culture, migrated en masse into the Nile Valley? Or is that DNA a relic of Paleolithic migration when stuff was sloshing around? And by the way, when modern people left Africa, okay, and so there's a certain period of time where you may have things going back and forth. So if that's the case, then you get down to a question of, well, what makes it non-African if it's been there 20,000 years? Okay, even if it arose someplace else 30,000 years ago, no one attempts to remove the Greeks from Europe just because, the Greeks have some Y chromosome lineages that we know arose in Africa 20,000 years ago. We know that a certain percentage of the Greek population has the benign sickle cell type sickle cell variant. So, so let's not confuse gene history with population history, and let's not confuse the fact that in places in the world where you have people where there are intersections or places are near each other, that you might have had some genes, some ancient migrants that got absorbed into the population. Let's not confuse that with the origins of culture. And let's keep